This is Ag Matters PM from the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, brought to you by the Iowa Soybean Association, your source for the latest Iowa ag news headlines right here in the heart of the heartland. With reports from our award-winning team of Dustin Hoffman, Riley Smith, Mark Magnuson, and Andy Peterson. Now, from the IARN studios in Des Moines, here's Mark.
Hello and welcome into Ag Matters PM on the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network. I'm Mark Magnuson. Today is Monday, July 14th, 2025, and we're so glad you can join us for today's show. In today's episode, I will be joined by Sam Trainor of agmarket.net for our closing markets as we talk about a stronger day for the corn in the grain markets. But first, I'm joined by Mark Storr of BASF as we talk about the potential for fungal disease pressure creeping its way into the state of Iowa following the recent rain that we have received and the weather conditions. Mark Magnuson for the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, and I'm joined today by Mark Storr of BASF. And Mark, we wanted to have you on today to talk about the current state of affairs here in the state of Iowa with all the moisture we have received in the way of consistent rainfall. We've had these timely rainfalls. They've been nicely spread out, but at the same time, what that means for where we are right now in terms of crop development, how diseases are coming along in terms of their development and the pressure they're putting on the crops, and then also what that means about our nitrogen loss. So could you give us kind of a state of the union right now for where we are in the state of Iowa, Mark?
Well, Mark, I think a lot of folks, they drive down the road and look at the corn and amazing yield potential. A lot of hope. There are some areas of concern with extra heavy moisture. Obviously, ponding is not a good thing. But overall, things look awesome as far as crop development goes. I think last Monday's crop report, they estimated statewide 15% corn silking. It certainly advanced well past that a week, or now another week has passed, basically. And I'm thinking, it's probably somewhere in that 30 to 40% here in central Iowa, just driving around. So a lot is going on, a lot of disease. As you're probably well aware, tar spot was discovered quite early this year in 3 counties in Iowa going back to the middle of June. And that is, the map has continued to grow in color. And I believe the last count, we had about 19 or 20 counties here in the state of Iowa that have documented incidents of tar spot, which is obviously a disease of concern. And, the wet weather expedites that, cooler temperatures. It's really the leaf wetness, though, that we're dealing with, the constant humidity, the lack of drying that's going to likely be a good thing or a good environment for those diseases. And, of course, there's a host of foliar diseases in soybeans we worry about, too. One that comes to mind may be white mold, but the usual suspects are there as well, whether it be frog eye leaf spot or Cercospora. So the other thing I think is a watch out is southern rust. That's a devastating disease. It blows up from the south. And I see now the last map indicates it's been discovered in southern Missouri. And when I look at the area south of us, that's where our moisture comes from, the Gulf region. And when you have a pattern like this, continued southerly airflow, that's going to bring in those rust spores. And potentially that could be a problem. And I really have never seen it as bad as it was until last year. But that's one that we definitely need to keep our eyes on as well.
Mark, when it comes to the nitrogen side, the nutrition side of things, do farmers right now need to be doing tissue sampling to see what their fields need in terms of nutrition? Because we have had such consistent rainfall and potentially some nitrogen loss.
Yeah, that's a concern I have. Anytime we get past, this month of July, I think you're going to start to see this corn go backwards, where we've had a lot of this extra rain. So it's definitely something to keep in mind and worth consideration. Now, what's acting in our favor is mineralization, which is a natural availability of nitrogen from the soil. And so moisture expedites that. But, in these late vegetative and early reproductive stages of the corn plant's life, it uses about 5 to 7 pounds of nitrogen per acre daily. Through mineralization, we're lucky to get a couple pounds, and maybe that'll be extended this year because of the wet soil conditions, but there may be some areas that could benefit from some nitrogen applications, a Y drop, or we actually have seen it applied early in cases where we can't, run over the field. So that's something to keep an eye on, or keep this yield potential there for us.
Mark, when I think about a season where we're having consistent rainfall like we are right now, pretty persistent wetness out in those fields, immediately start to think about fungicide. But at the same time, I know that the plant, or I should say, these diseases continue to build that resistance against fungicide. How much does that resistance build each and every year? Does that ability to resist the fungicide grow each year?
Well, it's a concern. Any pesticide we make, there's a stress applied to the pest, right? And so this is called selection pressure. So when we do that, that creates a selection pressure on the environment. And the idea is that there may be part of the pest in whether it's insects or weeds or disease that may be not susceptible to those fungicides. They then survive. You take away their competitor part of the population, and then they can thrive. In our case, where we're looking at foliar applications in corn and soybeans, we're typically looking at one application per year. So it does minimize the level of selection pressure. Unlike herbicides, if you think about it, they're applied multiple times per year. Insecticides the same way. And some growing systems, typically fruit, vegetables, grapes, things like that, they make multiple applications throughout the season. And obviously all that adds up to increased selection pressure and a greater likelihood of resistance development. So I feel pretty good about in our management strategy, the way we operate, that it's always got to be something we think about, but we manage that with using multiple modes of action within our fungicides. And generally BASF is well vested in that technology and continuing to look for new active ingredients that could bolster that portfolio. But we don't really push or sell any products that are of a single mode of action.
And with those multiple modes of action, Mark, correct me if I'm wrong, but from what I understand, then if one mode of action wasn't as efficient as you were hoping for, or is not able to get the job done, then you can rely on the backup of that maybe second mode of action or a third mode of action then to come in and hopefully help you with that fungal disease, correct?
Yeah, exactly. You're looking at multiple sites of action within the pest, and the idea is that you're killing it with two different pesticides, in this case, or fungicides. So that's all well and good because it reduces the likelihood of a survivor. So again, our products are very efficacious. They're best in the industry, whether that's Revitec for soybeans or Veltima for corn. They both contain at least 2 or 3 modes of action. And so they provide a great disease killing power, as well as a lot of other plant health attributes that we utilize to bolster our yield, which is obviously important in an arena with lower commodity prices. In order to produce more dollars per acre, the only way to do that is to produce more yield. And that's where I think a lot of growers are utilizing fungicides to get those benefits out of those products.
He is Mark Storr of BASF, my guest here today. Mark, thanks so much for the time. Always appreciate it. Have a great rest of your week.
You too. Thanks, Mark.
Thank you to Mark Storr of BASF for joining today's show. We will have more from that conversation with Mark coming up in a later episode of AM/PM. It is time now for our closing markets, and I will be joined by Sam Trainor of agmarket.net. But first, a word from our sponsor, the Iowa Soybean Association and the Soybean Checkoff. You're watching Ag Matters PM.
Iowa Soybean Association is driven to deliver for Iowa's 40,000 soybean farmers. We're proud to provide objective agronomic research, a helping hand with soil and water stewardship, and timely industry news powered by the Soybean Checkoff. Learn more at iasoybeans.com.
Joined now on Ag Matters PM by Sam Trainor of agmarket.net for our closing markets. Sam, how did we trade in the grains here today?
We had a very positive close in the corn markets. Corn markets finished on their high of the day towards the end of the session. Soybeans were a little bit mixed, finished right around unchanged, but it was nice to see that corn market rebound after opening negatively last night. Went down and made some new contract lows overnight. But did recover, as I mentioned there, and closed on the highs of the day. So very good to see that.
So, Sam, I'm sure we have some viewers that are kind of scratching their heads a little bit like I am when I'm thinking about all the negative news stories that we've been receiving as it relates to the ag marketplace. So what do you think was giving a little bit of support to the corn here today?
If you get on the internet there and search around on Twitter, there was a lot of talk today surrounding some disease issues and maybe some pollination concerns in some of this corn crop. And I think that really supported things because, like you said, if you take a 10,000-foot view here, everything seems to be pretty great. I mean, like I said, we opened lower last night. I think that was, of course, due to some of the tariff talks, but also due to some of the rain that we saw over the weekend. It seems like we've just continued to get the rain, and crop seems to be in really good shape when you're driving down the road. But seeing some pictures on Twitter today, like I said, guys actually out in the field and looking at some ears, and there's a lot of concerns with maybe some poor pollination and with all this rain that we've been getting, it's perfect breeding grounds for some disease as well. So maybe seeing a little bit more of that come to a head and put a little bit of pressure on things here and get these markets out of the slump we've been in.
And as it comes to trade right now and tariffs, are we kind of status quo? Has there been any update here today on any of that front?
I have not heard anything yet today. Still looking at the 30% tariff on Mexico and the European Union. That was the big news out of the weekend. That'll go into effect August 1st if no deal is made by that point. Also, it was mentioned, of course, that President Trump said that he will match any reciprocal tariffs if Mexico or the European Union decides to do so. So it could be a repeat of April all over again, but hopefully not. Hopefully we can come to some sort of an agreement and get past this here before that August 1st deadline. That would also support prices, of course, Mexico being the number one buyer of U.S. corn here. That they're going to be a big player here. So if we could come to some sort of agreement there, that would be huge.
On the flip side of the market, how did we trade in the livestock complex today?
There was nothing good going on that side of the board here today. Cattle futures were sharply lower, both fats and feeders. Hearing some sharp declines to box beef prices was kind of the culprit here, is why we were so much lower. It was just Thursday of last week we were making new contract highs in that market, and it's been if you've been following the market, it's been kind of a whipsaw pattern here. You go up, make new highs, and then you correct a little bit, and it looks like maybe we're in that mode here right now, where maybe we're correcting down to the lower end of this channel that we've been in for a while, and if history repeats itself here in the last 6 months, that lower end of that channel has held, and we've generally come back up and made new contract highs. So I don't think anybody's hitting the panic button just yet, but certainly a lot of red on the screen in that side of things. And then as you switch over into the hog market, they saw a little bit of red today as well, down about $1.50 on those August pigs today. So they were on a pretty good run there for a while, and then last week we saw some declines to those prices, and that followed through in today's session as well.
Sam Trainor of agmarket.net, my guest for Closing Market. Sam, what's the best way for our viewers to get in touch for more marketing information?
Best way would be to visit our website at agmarket.net or give us a call, 1-800-779-1515.
Sam, thanks so much for all the information here today. Great to talk with you, and we'll speak again soon. Have a good rest of your day.
All right. Thanks, Mark. We'll talk to you later.
Thank you to Sam Trainor of agmarket.net for joining today's show. Let's take a look at how the markets closed today, and we can find the numbers under the Markets tab of our website at iowaagnet.com.
September corn closes up 4 cents at $4 even. August soybeans down 3 1/4 at $10.01 even. August soybean meal down $2.60 at $2.67.70. August soybean oil up 42 cents at $54.17. Chicago wheat down 3 1/2 at $5.41.5. Minneapolis wheat down 10 cents at $6.04. Kansas City hard red wheat down 1 1/4 at $5.23 even. September oats down 2 3/4 at $3.67. On the Merc, August live cattle down 2.85 at $2.19.35. August feeder cattle down 5.85 at $3.19.48. August lean hogs down $1.45 at $103.23. August pork cutout down $1.70 at $110.53. Class 3 milk down a penny at $17.36.
That does it for our closing market coverage here today and brings us to the end of today's show. You can find all of our content on our website at iowaagnet.com. You can follow us on social media at Facebook and X, and you can listen to our morning, midday, and closing market podcast, as well as our daily episodes of the Iowa Ag Matters podcast, wherever you find your favorite podcast, at Apple, Amazon, Google, Spotify, and YouTube, along with Podbean. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Click on the notification icon to let you know whenever there's any new content available from the network. From the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network studios in Des Moines, I'm Mark Magnuson. For Riley Smith, Ashton Jolly, Dustin Huffman, and Andy Peterson, we thank you for watching. This has been Ag Matters PM.